Listen up, Austin. You're overreacting. Stephanie barely glanced up from her iPhone and brushed past me like I was office furniture. Stop hovering. It's suffocating. So, we're doing this dance now. I leaned against the kitchen counter of our Leawood townhouse, watching my wife of 8 years treat me like a performance review she'd rather skip. You disappear for 3 days straight, sleep facing the wall, then call me dramatic when I ask what changed. Nothing changed, she said, pulling Greek yogurt from the stainless steel fridge. You're just needy lately. Needy? Right. I watched her take the last Chobani and close the door without making eye contact. If I'd known where this freight train was headed, I would have jumped the tracks a month ago. She snorted. Save the sales pitches, Austin. If I'd known where this was going, yeah, I'd have moved a lot faster than quarterly projections. I bought this townhouse 12 years ago, fresh out of college, when I landed my first sales rep job with Medtronic. Back then, the mortgage felt like climbing Everest on a $42K salary. Now, after 10 years of promotions and a regional manager position, pulling $88K base plus commission, the house felt like the smartest investment I'd ever made, especially since Stephanie moved in 4 years after I bought it, then married me 2 years later. The next evening, we had dinner at our neighbor's place. Chad and Linda Williams' suburban backyard, string lights that probably cost more than my quarterly bonus, and overpriced steaks from Whole Foods. 10 minutes in, Stephanie had her show running. Linda refilled wine glasses. So, how's the new territory expansion going? Booked solid through Q4, I said. Finally hired 3 more reps for the Kansas and Missouri hospitals. Medtronic's pushing us hard on the new cardiac monitoring systems. Just closed a $240K contract with University of Kansas Medical Center last week. Stephanie cut in before Linda could respond. Austin loves acting like he's running the Mayo Clinic, she said, waving her fork. It's medical equipment sales. Calm down. Chad let out a nervous chuckle. Linda shot me a quick glance that said, yikes. I set my fork down carefully. My hospital administrators think it's more complex than that, because I make sure they understand the technology that keeps their patients alive. Stephanie, I tilted my head slightly. You're at my dinner table too. Pick a different hobby than dismantling me. See? She looked at Linda with theatrical exhaustion. He can't take constructive feedback. Too much of your feedback lands like a performance improvement plan nobody requested. Chad cleared his throat. Anyone try that new BBQ place on State Line? Great brisket. Amazing food, Stephanie said brightly. Austin, tell them how you burned the salmon last week and almost called tech support. I didn't blink. Tell them how you didn't come home until 1 a.m. Tuesday and called it a client dinner. Linda froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. Chad suddenly found his plate fascinating. Okay, Linda said carefully. Who wants more asparagus? None for me, I said, pushing back my chair. By the way, folks, quick heads up. I'm scaling back the couple's circuit for a while. No more double dates until further notice. Excuse me? Stephanie frowned. You don't make unilateral decisions about our social calendar. I just did. I stood up. If dinner conversation is open mic night where I'm the punchline, I'm out. Next time you want an audience for your material, try the dog. He's got lower standards. Linda's eyes widened. Chad stared at his asparagus like it held life's answers. Stephanie laughed too loudly. The fragile male ego has entered the building. Or the functional adult. I looked at Linda. Thanks for dinner. Rain check on that BBQ place. Chad, text me your golf schedule. I left early, walked the 50 yards home, and sat on our front steps breathing October air that smelled like burning leaves and distant barbecue smoke. I wasn't angry. I was done being entertainment. She came home 20 minutes later, heels clicking on concrete like a countdown timer. You embarrassed me, she said. No, I said, standing up. You did that part yourself. I just stopped applauding. You're pulling away because I teased you a little? Teasing isn't what that was. I faced her squarely. Here's my new operating system. Monday through Friday, I'm working territory calls until 6. After that, I'm at the gym or grabbing beers with Ryan. Saturday mornings are for golf at the club, company membership for client entertainment. If you want Austin time, put it on the calendar like a professional. If you try the public commentary routine again, I'll leave again. No scene, just gone. She stared like she'd never seen me before. You can't dictate our relationship. It's not a dictatorship. It's a boundary. You can engage like a partner, or you can enjoy your one-woman show solo. She smirked. You're actually serious about this calendar nonsense? Write it down, I said. She rolled her eyes and headed for the bedroom. Whatever, Austin. I slept like a rock for the first time in weeks, the kind of deep sleep that comes when you stop carrying someone else's emotional baggage. A week later, she pivoted strategy. Morning coffee, she slid scrambled eggs toward me like a peace offering, seasoned with desperation. I've been snippy, she said, voice soft, eyes wide like a pharmaceutical commercial. Work's been insane with the new Hallmark campaign. I shouldn't take agency stress out on you. I tasted the eggs, perfectly fluffy with just enough salt. Good. Noted. I'm trying, she added, touching my hand across the granite island. I booked dinner Friday. That steakhouse you like downtown? I lifted an eyebrow. Today's Thursday. Her mouth twitched slightly, caught in real time. You said put things on the calendar. I did. Friday I lift. With Ryan, I said, checking my phone calendar like she wasn't sitting 3 feet away. I can do Saturday evening. 7:30 reservation. She blinked twice, processing that her manipulation had been filed under business as usual and processed accordingly. You're serious about this calendar system? Extremely, she nodded, smile thin as paper and twice as fragile. Saturday then. Friday night, she sent photos from girls' happy hour at some rooftop bar downtown, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. The captions were sunshine and hashtags. Or girls' night, at needed this, blessed. I didn't reply. Ryan and I hit chest and triceps at the gym, then split-loaded nachos at Buffalo Wild Wings, while debating whether the Chiefs had any chance against Denver's defense. Saturday night at the Capitol Grill, I let her run point. She dressed sharp, black dress that cost more than my monthly car payment, makeup turned up like she was pitching to a Fortune 500 account. She asked about my hospital visits, laughed at my stories about difficult procurement managers who treated every purchase like they were buying the Pentagon, touched my arm a few times, like the cold weeks had been somebody else's marriage entirely. When the check came, she reached for it with theatrical flourish. Let me get this. Your turn to feel appreciated. Good. I leaned back in the leather booth. Small note. Appreciation isn't a performance you buy with a credit card. It's a pattern you build with consistency. Her smile held steady, but her eyes cooled like Kansas wind in January. You're exhausting when you analyze everything, Austin, and you're exhausting when you hit the brakes after flooring the gas pedal. She handed the card to our server without looking at me, signature sharp as broken glass. The rest of dinner stayed civil, professional almost. We discussed her marketing campaign for Hallmark's Christmas line, like colleagues sharing quarterly updates. Back home, she kissed my cheek at the door and went to bed without waiting for me to follow. The message was clear as quarterly reports. Warmth came with an expiration date. 2 days later, she showed up at my office around noon. I was in a client meeting with University of Kansas Medical Center, deep in cardiac monitor specifications with their head of cardiology, Dr. Martinez. The new equipment could detect arrhythmias 30 seconds faster than their current system, potentially life-saving margin in emergency situations. She waved through the conference room glass like she was hailing a taxi in downtown traffic. Austin, I need you to drive me to the BMW dealership, she announced through the door. My car's getting detailed and they're running behind. I held up one finger and continued explaining the monitoring protocols. Dr. Martinez nodded, taking notes about integration with their existing systems. After we wrapped the technical details and he left with our proposal, I stepped into the hallway. You can wait an hour, I said. We're finalizing a $240K equipment contract that affects patient outcomes. She checked her manicure, French tips perfect as always. I need to be there by 1:30. It's 12:45 now. Call an Uber. They're efficient and don't require emotional manipulation. I prefer my husband driving me, and I prefer finishing work during work hours that pay for your lifestyle. She raised her chin like she was posing for a corporate headshot. You're my husband, Austin. 2 sales reps from our Kansas City office stood nearby, pretending to study their phones with the intensity of medical researchers. Our regional director, Janet, walked past, clearly cataloging every word for future water cooler discussions. I made it my teaching moment. Folks, I said to the office in general, we're running about 30 minutes behind on the KU Med contract. Coffee's fresh in the break room, and there are Danish from that place on Main Street. The reps nodded and headed that direction. Janet gave me a subtle thumbs up before disappearing into her corner office. I turned to Stephanie, voice low but clear. New policy. No drop-ins at my office unless someone's bleeding or the house is burning down. Scheduling exists for a reason. Use it like the professional you claim to be. You're actually refusing to help your wife. Correct. I'm refusing to abandon a $240K deal to provide taxi service you can purchase for $12. She laughed, but it wasn't pleasant. It sounded like breaking glass in an empty room. You're making me call a rideshare for a 15-minute drive. Yes. And you're making this conversation longer than necessary. She stared for 3 long seconds, calculating her next move like a chess player who just realized she was in check, then huffed out without another word, heels clicking against polished concrete with the rhythm of a disappointed typewriter. 2 hours later, I got a text that felt like it was written by a different person entirely. Sorry I was harsh. Dinner tonight? My treat. No commentary, promise. I responded, sure, 7 p.m. Ingredient. The farm-to-table place was neutral territory, good food without the performance art atmosphere. She was trying to reel it back in, restore the previous dynamic where boundaries were suggestions and schedules were flexible recommendations. Dinner was quiet, professional almost. No digs, no performance art, no public dismantling of my career achievements. She asked about my shoulder from lifting. I'd tweaked it on overhead, pressed the day before. She brought me a new protein shaker from her car, said the blue color reminded her of my eyes. It seemed genuine enough, like she'd consulted a manual titled How to Be a Decent Wife, and was following the instructions carefully. I noted the pattern with the precision of a medical device calibration. Warmth when she hit resistance. Distance once she felt secure again. Like a thermostat that only worked. When the temperature dropped below comfort level, that distance came back with compound interest over the following weeks. The late nights multiplied like aggressive cancer cells. She worked late on client campaigns, then checked on a friend going through family drama, then lost track of time at networking events that seemed to happen every night. Every time I asked for specifics, I got the same flat response delivered with the enthusiasm of reading insurance terms. You're reading into everything, Austin. That's because everything reads like a script with missing pages, I'd reply. But she was already walking away, phone pressed to her ear, discussing urgent marketing emergencies that couldn't wait until morning. One Thursday, she got home after midnight, heels in her hand again, perfume strong enough to be a trail of breadcrumbs leading back to whatever story she wasn't telling. I'd left a note on the counter hours earlier. Saturday plans canceled, golf tournament at the club, back Sunday evening. She found me on the couch, ESPN highlights playing softly in the background. Chiefs game recap for the 3rd time. You canceled on me? She asked, standing in the doorway like an actress waiting for her cue. I removed myself from an event that stopped being a team sport. You're punishing me. Nope, I'm choosing where to invest my time. Saturday evening isn't good for me anymore. I already told people we'd be at Jessica's birthday party, she said, arms crossing like she was building a fortress across her chest. Then go represent the family. You're excellent at solo performances. She wrapped her arms tighter, defensive posture that would make a negotiation consultant take notes. You're impossible. What's your problem with my schedule, Austin? I muted the TV with deliberate precision. What changed your schedule, Stephanie? She rolled her eyes like I'd asked her to explain quantum physics. Stop interrogating me. You're not my supervisor. Good, because if I were your supervisor, I'd ask why you keep clocking out at midnight without explanation. And I'd want documentation for all these evening meetings. I need space, she said, voice rising like steam from a kettle. You crowd me with constant questions, constant needs. I can't breathe. Space doesn't punch a time clock at 12:30 a.m. and smell like someone else's cologne. I owe you nothing, she said, tossing her hair like a shampoo commercial directed by someone who'd never been married. If you can't handle an independent woman, that's a you problem. I can handle a partner. I won't subsidize a ghost who pays rent in my house with attitude and excuses. She opened her mouth like she had a PowerPoint presentation ready, complete with pie charts explaining why I was the problem. Then shut it, calculation replacing anger like one software program closing and another opening. You'll survive, she said, heading to the bedroom with the confidence of someone who'd never considered alternative outcomes. I sat there, remote in my hand, and made a decision that felt like signing a contract I should have read months earlier. Next morning, driving to my first hospital call in Lawrence, I contacted a guy Ryan knew from his divorce 3 years back. Carl Rodriguez, private investigator, the kind who finds answers and keeps detailed receipts for everything. I gave him Stephanie's full name, work schedule, car details, silver BMW 330i, license plate KCR 4891, and the patterns I'd been tracking like a medical researcher documenting symptoms. I'm not looking to cause drama, I told him over the phone while parked outside St. Francis Medical Center. I want facts, clean, documented, court-ready facts. He didn't promise timelines or outcomes, he promised the truth, and truth was the only currency I was interested in trading anymore. While I waited for Carl's investigation, I met with an attorney, Jennifer Park, calm and direct, exactly my preferred business style. Her office overlooked the plaza, all glass and steel like a medical device company's headquarters. I laid out the emotional distance, the late nights, the defensive patterns that had become as predictable as quarterly sales cycles. I didn't paint myself as a saint or a victim. I told her what I'd done, the boundary setting, the calendar system, the strategic withdrawal, and what I was done tolerating. When you get confirmation, she said, fingers steepled like a surgeon explaining a procedure, you keep your mouth shut. No confrontations, no accusations, no dramatic reveals. Let me file the paperwork first. You maintain normal routine, document everything, keep sleeping in the same house. You don't telegraph your next move until we're ready to execute. I can do boring, I said. I've been doing sales for 12 years. I know how to wait for the right moment to close a deal. A week later, Carl sent me a set of time-stamped photos that didn't require interpretation or analysis. Digital evidence with metadata that would satisfy any court requirements. Stephanie outside the Majestic restaurant on Tuesday night, laughing too close with a man who looked like he bench-pressed luxury cars for cardiovascular exercise. Her hand on his arm, his hand on her waist, body language that spoke fluent infidelity. Another photo from Wednesday night, different upscale location. Some wine bar in Westport with exposed brick and pretentious lighting. Same intimate positioning, same energy that screamed, "We know exactly what we're doing, and we don't care who sees us." A third, same man, same intimate body language, same we've moved past friendship, and into something requiring hotel reservations, chemistry. Carl had followed them to One Light Apartments downtown, luxury complex with valet parking and doormen who probably made more than entry-level medical sales reps. He sent me the unit number, 4B, and a name with complete background, information. Chad Williams, financial advisor at Edward Jones, recently divorced, BMW sedan, gym membership at the same Planet Fitness, where Stephanie had suddenly developed an interest in physical fitness. Carl's report included workplace address, divorce records, social media analysis, financial background check. It was clean, thorough, and more damning than any closing argument a prosecutor could deliver. I called Jennifer immediately. Her voice didn't change pitch or pace, professional as a cardiac surgeon discussing routine procedures. "Understood," she said. "I'll prepare everything and file when you give me the go-ahead. You say nothing until I confirm we're ready to execute. No confrontations, no hints, no changes to routine." "Copy that," I said, using the military precision that had served me well in medical sales negotiations. The next phase required patience, documentation, and the kind of strategic thinking that separated successful sales professionals from order takers who blamed external factors for their failures. I went home that night and made dinner like a cookbook instructed. Grilled chicken, steamed broccoli, wild rice that took 45 minutes to cook properly. Set a plate for Stephanie with the precision of a lab technician preparing samples. She drifted in after 11 p.m., saw the meal waiting under aluminum foil, looked at me with theatrical surprise that belonged on a community theater stage. "Sweet," she said, lifting the foil like she was unveiling a memorial plaque. "Guilt food." "Just dinner," I replied, not looking up from my laptop where I was reviewing quarterly territory reports. "I'm not hungry." "Then toss it," I said, fingers still clicking across the keyboard. It already served its purpose. "What purpose?" reminding me that I'm done playing chef for someone who eats elsewhere and comes home smelling like she's been sampling other people's cologne collections. She set her purse down with the deliberate control of someone defusing a bomb. "You're getting petty, Austin." "I'm getting clarity. There's a difference." She pointed a finger at me like a pen she was about to throw. "You keep acting like this, I'll need a real break, like a serious one." "There's the honest version," I said, nodding while typing. "Say that plain next time, instead of wrapping it in the passive-aggressive gift paper." 3 days later, she tried manipulation strategy number 2. Saturday morning, pancakes arranged like architectural drawings, turkey bacon crispy enough to shatter, new vanilla candle burning on the kitchen island with the intensity of a religious vigil. The whole townhouse smelled like a spa that charged $300 for aromatherapy consultations. She came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist like we were newlyweds posing for our first Christmas card. "I miss us," she said softly, voice carrying the kind of manufactured emotion that made pharmaceutical commercials compelling. "Let's reset this whole thing." "What triggered this spiritual awakening?" I asked, scrolling through hospital emails on my phone. She kissed my shoulder blade through my golf polo. "I've been harsh. It's not fair to you. Come with me to Monica's baby shower today. It'll be good to show a united front." "You haven't cared about fronts for months," I said, forwarding a contract revision to my attorney. "But, okay, 1 hour." At the shower, she played perfect wife like an Oscar campaign in full swing, fingers laced with mine, laughing with the other marketing executives about campaign horror stories and impossible client demands, introducing me to people as my amazing husband who saves lives with medical technology. I stood next to Ryan by the dessert table, watching the performance with the detached interest of a theater critic. "You good?" he asked, loading his plate with what appeared to be artisanal cupcakes. "I'm a prop today," I said. "It's fine. I can stand still. You look like you want to flip this entire table and walk out through the window. Not my style. Too dramatic." Stephanie floated over once to adjust my collar like a wardrobe assistant preparing an actor for a crucial scene. "Smile," she whispered, breath warm against my ear. "Like you mean it." I flashed a pleasant nothing, all teeth and no warmth. "You want the full orthodontist showcase or just the corners?" She pinched my arm gently, warning disguised as affection, then walked away to rejoin her audience of suburban wives discussing property taxes and private school rankings. An hour later, I told her my time was up and left for the golf course. 18 holes with my usual Saturday foursome, 2 other medical sales reps and a cardiologist who bought equipment from us and played to a 4 handicap. That night, she went for coffee with Sarah from the agency and never made it home before midnight. The pattern was locked in stone now, predictable as quarterly earnings reports. My decision hardened like concrete setting in a Kansas winter. Jennifer texted Tuesday morning, "We're close. Days, not weeks. Stay the course." Monday morning, Stephanie pulled the pin she'd been polishing all weekend like a grenade she'd been waiting to throw. "I need a break," she said at breakfast, voice light as helium, while she scrolled through her phone with practiced indifference. "Space to breathe, change of scenery. I'm going to Napa Valley with the girls next week, 7 days of wine tasting and spa treatments. I already looked at flights, leaving Thursday, back the following Thursday." "Do that," I said, not looking up from my territory expansion spreadsheet. "You're not going to argue. Why would I argue with a plan that gives you exactly what you keep saying you need?" She looked up, eyes narrowing like she was reading fine print on a contract she hadn't reviewed carefully. "You're being agreeable. That's unusual for you lately?" "I'm learning," I said, clicking through hospital accounts that needed quarterly reviews. "You say you need California wine country? Go breathe it." She studied me like a document she suspected contained hidden clauses. "There's something different about you, Austin." "Clarity," I said, updating client contact information with methodical precision. It looked strange at first. She bought a new suitcase with rose gold wheels from some boutique store that probably charged more for luggage than most people spend on monthly groceries, left little stacks of resort wear on the guest bed, flowing dresses, designer sandals, swimsuits that cost more per square inch than medical equipment. Made a show of packing like a teenager heading to summer camp, complete with color-coordinated outfits and enough skincare products to stock a pharmacy. I smiled when appropriate, nodded when necessary, and hit the gym harder than usual. Bench press, deadlifts, rowing machine, until my hands blistered and my shoulders burned with the kind of productive pain that came from preparation rather than punishment. The night before her trip, she tried gentle manipulation one final time. "Want to watch something?" she asked, sitting close on the couch for the first time in weeks, voice soft as cashmere. "I can make that popcorn you like, the kind with the truffle oil." "I'm turning in early," I said, closing my laptop and standing. "Have a safe flight," she frowned, confusion replacing calculation. "You're really not going to make this difficult?" "Nope." "Okay," she said slowly, drawing out each letter like she was solving a puzzle. "Okay." The morning she left, I dropped her at Kansas City International, loaded her rose gold luggage into my F-150 with the mechanical precision of a medical equipment delivery, kissed her forehead like a business associate saying goodbye after a successful conference. "Enjoy your space," I said. "You too," she replied, suspicious and amused at once, like she was watching a magic trick she couldn't quite figure out. I drove straight from the airport to my own departure gate. Jennifer's final message the day before. 2 weeks minimum. That's what you need to establish separate living arrangements. 2 weeks gave me room to breathe, to step completely off her stage and remember what it felt like to be Austin Kellerman instead of Stephanie's supporting cast member. I booked a single ticket to Napa Valley for 14 days, texted Ryan my plans, and flew out that evening with a small duffel bag and a clearer mind than I'd had in months. Napa Valley isn't complicated. Wide vineyard rows stretching toward mountains. People who don't care about your personal drama, unless you choose to share it over wine that costs more than most people's car payments. I did my version of detox, ran through vineyard paths at sunrise, ate food with too much garlic and not enough apology, slept like an actual human being instead of someone waiting for the other shoe to drop. Day 3, at a cafe with outdoor tables and painfully good espresso, I met Brooke Martinez. She was reading something with extensive footnotes, highlighting passages with the intensity of a law student preparing for finals. We made eye contact because the barista mixed up our orders. Mine was simple black coffee. Hers was some elaborate creation that required an engineering degree to understand. She laughed, genuine sound that hit frequencies I'd forgotten existed. "Are you the guy who ordered the very serious double shot?" "I'm the guy who ordered basic coffee and got this dissertation," I said, examining the foam art that looked like it required artistic talent. "It looks like it could calculate my taxes." "Here," she said, sliding mine across the small table. Return to sender. We talked easy, conversation flowing like good wine without the pretense. She had a job in landscape design, contracts with resorts and corporate campuses, a mind that felt sharp without needing to prove it every 30 seconds. She didn't press for personal details, so I gave her the executive summary. Things at home are frozen solid. I didn't cause the ice age, and I'm not melting it alone. I'm here to remember I'm a person, not a performance. "That's a healthy sentence," she said, stirring her coffee counterclockwise. "Want to walk, or is that too old school?" We walked. We ate dinner that night at a place that served portions reasonable for human beings instead of Instagram photos. The next day we rented bikes and explored small towns with names I couldn't pronounce but could appreciate. We didn't pretend to be more than two adults who enjoyed talking and who made each other feel normal. After a few days, we looked like a couple from the outside. Easy conversation, shared tables, inside jokes about wine snobs who discussed vintages like they were curing cancer. I told her the longer version of my home situation, the investigation, the attorney, the strategic planning that felt more like corporate restructuring than marriage counseling. She listened without pity or judgment, just attention. "She's letting go of something valuable," Brooke said, twirling a straw wrapper between her fingers. "That's not your mess to manage. Appreciate the perspective. What does your lawyer say?" "To sit still and not announce my clarity until the paperwork is ready for execution." "Then sit still," she said, raising her wine glass. "With good wine and better company." On day 7 of my trip, the text came through at noon while I was at a farmer's market with Brooke, holding a paper boat of artisanal cheese that probably cost more per ounce than silver. "Stephanie, I'm home early. Where are you?" I was standing next to Brooke in front of a lavender vendor, both of us in sunglasses, rolling hills stretching behind us like a postcard advertising the life you could have if you made better choices. I took a quick selfie with her in the background, both of us smiling like People who understood what happiness looked like and sent it with one word: breathing. My phone erupted like a small electronic war. Call after call, message after message, demands and questions and essays, all variations of the same theme. What are you doing? Who is she? How dare you? We need to talk right now. I put it face down and kept walking. Brooke glanced at my buzzing pocket. That the glacier having a meltdown? Yeah. You gonna answer it? No, I said, popping a piece of aged cheddar that tasted like it came from cows who live better than most humans. I'm going to breathe. We sat on a bench overlooking the valley, California sun warming everything it touched. You okay? I'm better than okay. Good, she said, bumping my shoulder with hers. It looks good on you, Jennifer messaged later. Filed, service in 4872 hours. Maintain radio silence until further notice. Copy, I wrote back. The next week passed like good wine, smooth, satisfying, with just enough complexity to keep things interesting. Stephanie's calls became white noise. I blocked numbers, emails, social media attempts. All she got from me was silence and the legal notice forwarded from Jennifer to her work email. Brooke didn't push for details about the explosion happening in my phone. She met me for dinner, teased me about my Kansas City accent, and let me be a person without assignments or performance requirements. My last night, she made a simple dinner in her rental house. Pasta with vegetables that actually tasted like vegetables. Salad with olive oil that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. She lit a candle and rolled her eyes at herself. This isn't a seduction, she said, smiling. It's a goodbye dinner, so you don't leave thinking this was just coffee and bike rentals. I didn't think that, I said, but I'll accept the carbs. We ate. She handed me a small paper bag with a notebook and a pen. On the first page, she'd written one line. Keep your boundaries. If you want to talk, she said at the door later, call. If you don't, that's okay too. I'm not building plans around someone I met a week ago. You're just easy to like. Same here. She hugged me like we'd known each other for years instead of days. And that was that. Back home, my key turned in my own front door to find a suitcase standing like a security checkpoint in the entryway. My suitcase. On top, a post-it note written in Stephanie's corporate handwriting. Be a man and give me space. Go stay with Ryan. I laughed. It came out clean, like air escaping from something that had been under pressure too long. She was in the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes hot enough to melt titanium medical implants. The same kitchen where I'd made her dinner dozens of times, where we discussed weekend plans and quarterly goals and what kind of wine to serve at dinner parties. You think you're clever, she said, voice sharp as a scalpel, posting. Pictures like some teenage boy on spring break. Who is she? What game are you playing? Stephanie, I said, dropping my duffel bag on the couch with deliberate calm. You packed the wrong person's belongings. This is my home too, she snapped, voice rising like steam pressure building. You've been disrespecting me for weeks. You disappear, you ignore my calls, you send pictures with whoever that is. You think I'm stupid? I think you got comfortable, I said, pulling out my phone and scrolling to a folder I'd hoped I'd never need to access. And I think you forgot I'm not furniture you can rearrange when convenient. I don't want to see your vacation photos, Austin. I want answers. Okay. I held the screen up with the steady hand I used for presenting medical equipment specifications. Photo 1. Her at the Majestic with Chad Williams. Their bodies too close to pass for colleagues discussing quarterly reports. Photo 2. Different night, different venue, same intimate positioning that spoke fluent infidelity. Photo 3. Outside One Light Apartments. Timing and location documented with professional precision. Carl's investigation notes were typed cleanly at the bottom. Times, dates, unit numbers, background check results. She went very still, like someone had cut her power supply. Her face dropped whatever expression she'd been rehearsing for this moment. That's not... She started, then stopped. She looked at the floor, back at the photos, at me, calculating damage control like a marketing director facing a PR crisis. Where did you... That's not the relevant question. I can explain, she said, words mechanical as a recorded message, voice losing all the heat it had carried 30 seconds earlier. You can't. She swallowed hard, throat working like she was trying to process information her system couldn't handle. You've been cold, Austin. You've been distant. You pushed me away first. You made me feel like nothing. No. I held up a finger with the authority I used in hospital board meetings. We're not doing a thesis defense. We're finishing a lease agreement. She blinked rapidly, mascara threatening to become evidence of poor planning. Listen to me. 60 minutes, I said, checking my watch like I was timing a medical procedure. Take what's yours and what you can carry. Your access to our joint accounts was disabled yesterday. Your car stays because your name's on the title. This townhouse is mine because I bought it 3 years before I met you. If you need a moving truck for the rest, schedule it through Jennifer via email. I want advance notice and I'll have someone here to supervise. You will not be in this house without a scheduled window. You can't kick me out of my own home, she said, voice climbing octaves like a siren. It's not your home, I said, with the calm I used for explaining complex cardiac monitoring systems to skeptical doctors. And I'm not kicking anyone. I'm choosing who lives in my house. That person is not you. You're being cruel. I'm being collected. I have nowhere to go tonight. You have parents, friends, and a financial advisor with a downtown address and flexible evening hours. Her face flushed red as a cardiac emergency alert. Don't talk about him. I just did. She took a breath, tried to flip the negotiating table one final time. You're throwing away 8 years. 8 years ended when Respect left the building, I said. I'm just catching the bus that was already pulling away from the station. She stared at me for a long 10 seconds. It wasn't anger anymore. It was calculation dying on arrival, like a computer program crashing in real time. If you make me leave now, you'll regret it, she said, one last thin thread of leverage. I won't. She grabbed a suitcase from the hallway closet and started cramming clothes inside with the efficiency of someone who'd never learned to pack properly. No careful folds, no neat organization. She took random items off shelves like she wanted to punish the furniture for witnessing her performance. I didn't flinch. I opened the front door at the 58-minute mark. She walked out at 59, dragging rose gold wheels that scraped against the threshold like fingernails on a chalkboard. The door shut behind her with a clean sound that reminded me why I'd bought this house in the first place. Because it felt like home. 6 months later, Brooke moved to Kansas City. Not for me, she was careful to specify, but for a landscape design contract with a resort development company. We built something careful and real, based on mutual respect rather than performance requirements. When people ask what happened, I tell them the truth. I stopped being the audience for someone else's show, and I started writing my own script. Brooke asked me last night, half asleep, "You still breathing?" "Yeah," I said, finally.